Hello everyone, this is Ari in the Air. Welcome back to the channel. Stoked you're here. Today I want to share with you a paragliding flight that I did yesterday. It's my second flight on my new Flow XCRacer2, which I'm super stoked about. You'll see all about that. And it was a really deep flight that flew over a lot of places that had no landings. Not a super recommended thing to do, but when nature calls, is that the right term for that? There are some times where you can trust the sky to take you over places that don't have landings, and yesterday was one of those days, and I was one of those people. So I'm going to break down that flight for you and give you some tips and tricks along the way. If you like to paraglide, subscribe. If you like my channel, become a Patreon patron. It's patreon.com/airintheair. And if you're a man who wants to grow up, then check out my coaching link, because I do men's life and relationship coaching. Revolutionize your life. Okay, let's get into this. We are here on Sports Track Live, and we are launching from what is called Tim and Patty's launch. A couple of friends of ours created this launch here on the south side, or the east side of Pine Mountain. Okay, as you can see, there's already a couple people in the sky whose tracks are overlaid. There's actually 4 other pilots in the sky. I took 4 friends up with me. Yeah, 5 friends. 6 people launched. And mentoring some of them in cross country, and it's super awesome, which I love doing. As you can tell by me having 150 YouTube channels about paragliding. But let's get into it. Okay. So as you can see, I launched last. I'm the last one off launch. And then I do this little zigzag S-turn here going down the hill before getting scared, because if it's not a low save to begin with, you haven't launched at Pine Mountain, baby. But soon enough, I figure it out, and I start making it happen. And here we're watching GoPro footage of this, because I have a sweet GoPro Hero 10 Black, thanks to my friend Peter, who was my client on a cross-country paragliding tour in Colima, Mexico. He showed up having 1 flight hour, and the last day he flew 3.5 hours and 55 kilometers. So just saying, when I have a clinic, you might want to sign up for it. So, as you can see, we're climbing out, working together. The sky looks really super good. And basically the first move here is heading to the southwest, which takes us towards this giant and the oldest volcano in the area, which is now a giant crater with a couple lakes in it. It's called Paragliding Peak. As you can see, there's lots of clouds, and in this moment I have tailwind. So that's the way I'm heading, and there's also clouds. So I'm just going to cloud hop as best I can. And here the wind kind of changes, so I start heading west. As you can see, to my south, there's nothing but trees. It's a sea of trees. The landings get worse and worse and worse, and it's also going uphill. So it gets techie to climb this giant volcano. But I head to the west. So for the next, let's say hour or so, as you can see, there's just a sea of trees with a bunch of little lava buttes in them. It's a really cool place to fly. And here I basically head to the south, hoping that I'm going to really start connecting to these clouds and be able to go right up and over Paragliding Peak, but I can't quite make it happen. And like I said, there's really no landing options. And on a high aspect ratio 2-liner, it's hard to stuff it into tiny little shitty spots. So I try not to cowboy around too much, and I just try to fly around this sea of trees. As you can see, the sea of trees is still pretty thick, and I'm going to skip forward here. Basically, I'm going to keep going to the west in an east wind, but I basically have to track to the northwest to stay having any reasonable landings, and even the reasonable landings that I'm referring to are mostly unreasonable when I really assess them. But I have already started my mantra for the day, which is don't look down. It's a good one. So, let's go into the next GoPro footage, which is me here over Highway 97. This is between Bend and Sun River. It's really not working right here. I'm in a giant blue hole, as you can see, and it's quite difficult. But I managed to put together a couple different pieces of climb that kind of work. I've got a barking dog. And I end up pushing west of Highway 97 into a little town called Lapine, which doesn't have great landing options, even though it is a little town, Lapine, because tons of pine trees, and even though there's like roads, there's still 100-foot tall pine trees on both sides of these skinny little roads, so not a ton of landing zones, which is problematic and is going to be the theme for absolutely the rest of the day. It's only going to get worse from here, folks. So, okay, at this point, I'm approaching what's called Wickiup Reservoir, which is the reservoir that creates the Deschutes River, one of Central Oregon's finest. And as I get closer to that reservoir, which is so beautiful and finally has water in it for the first time in a couple of years, as you can imagine, just in Central Oregon, just like a lot of the American West, we have had a massive winter. And the massive winter has put snow really low, and we've had kind of a late winter as well, so a lot of this hasn't melted. A lot of these Forest Service roads that I would typically rely on to get a retrieve out from deep on a flight like this, I don't have. As you can see right here, I am absolutely coring. This is the strongest climb of the day. This went nearly to 6 meters a second, 5.5, and was quite consistent. I let it take me into this cloud, as you can see, and let me just give you a little tip about cloud flying. Today, as you can see in most of the footage, the clouds have what's called a capping inversion. So there is, the clouds have a pancake shape. They're not like this. They're not getting really, really tall. They're pancakes, which is really nice. It's not a risk of overdevelopment. There was no thunder showers yesterday, and because of that, as I'm getting hoovered up in this really strong climb, I look up and there's just a wisp of a cloud. And I think, oh, wow, I'm just here for the start of this. When I get to the cloud base, the cloud has consolidated a lot and it's grown a lot, but I kind of know that it's not going to become a thundercloud and it's not going to suck me up to 30,000 feet. And I'm also not going to get stuck inside of it. So I let myself go up into it, which is illegal via the FAA, but when there's no other aircraft, no other pilots, and you're on your own above Lapine, then when in Rome, my friends, when in Rome. Woo! Yeah, baby! Try to avoid going into the white room too deep. It's really just kind of nauseating and sucks. So I try to keep an eye on the ground. If I lose the ground, I look at the sun. If I lose the sun, I look at the flight instrument, and I keep a heading, and I push a bunch of speed bar. From here, I am just south of Wickiup Reservoir, and the flight is getting really, really good here. The clouds are really starting to work, and things are pumping. I've got a lot of altitude, and I'm staying high between the clouds. I'm topping off each climb under each cloud, and then I'm going to the next cloud. The clouds are fairly close together, and I'm going downwind. So shit is working good at this point. That's the only reason I decide that I can leave the highway and go deep over these lakes, which may or may not have car access into them. I'm also flying a huge comp kit. I'm in an exo seat harness, and I've got a XCRacer2, which is absolutely amazing for a two-liner. And so my kit is about 70 pounds, so I don't really have the capacity to hike it out of places. Okay, so here I am. I'm approaching Maiden Peak, and you can see Waldo Lake on my left, Maiden Peak on my right, and dead ahead of me is called Willamette Pass Ski Area. It's this really cute mom and pop ski area. I love getting good days there. They're closed Monday, Tuesday, so if you get it on a good Wednesday, it's really killer. But as you can see, there's absolutely nowhere to land, and I think there's some commentary from me about that on the GoPro footage. No LZs. Just not a single LZ as far as you can see. I guess I could put it in that frozen fucking lake. Not a good plan. But the climbs are really good. They're consistent, and I'm coring, and it's between 3 and 4.5 meters a second, and the clouds are really obvious. And so I'm kind of letting myself push it here. I knew that I could probably stuff it into the parking lot of Willamette Pass ski area, but it wasn't a given. Diamond Peak. Oh, Thielsen, Odell Lake below me. Past Davis Lake. I don't even know what this stuff is. I'm not from around here. Oh my God, Oak Ridge in the distance. Can you believe it? They're sisters. But as you can see, from here to Oak Ridge, Oregon, there's really no landing areas. And there's tiny little clear cuts that have 5 feet tall poison ivy in them. And there's frozen over lakes. But it's really not a good scene for landing. But I get really tall, and as you can see here, my GoPro kind of fritzes out and it gets really cold and it shuts off, but it records just this weird, like, I don't know, it like recorded it in time-lapse mode or some shit. But I have just a couple of frames of this cloud street that is set up on this mountain range, and this is the cloud street that I basically stay under and inside of all the way out towards Oak Ridge. And it was absolutely magical. I yelled at myself. I said, "Stop turning," because I didn't need to turn. I knew I didn't. I needed to just keep pushing and keep going. I made a few turns here, but more or less, here's some of my last turns, because it is 3:25 local time. I basically land at 4:20, and here starts the longest final glide ever. It is so long. Bunch of tailwind up high, although as I got over Oak Ridge, which is this town that you see down here in this valley over here, I looked down at the reservoir and I could see wind just whipping across the reservoir, fully white capping in the opposite direction that I'm flying. So the tailwind that I have high is not what's happening on the ground. It is obvious to me in the air that there is a massive valley wind down below, which kind of scares me, and I'm not excited to land in Oak Ridge. But as you can see, I am just on this insane glide. I am hauling ass, and I am barely sinking. My instrument at best was showing me 50-to-1 glide. I was doing 65 kilometers an hour at negative 0.5 meters a second, hands off, coffin position, just chilling, warming up my hands because the long cloud street froze them. And I'm seeing this reservoir up ahead, a reservoir I've never seen before and I've never been to and I don't know the name of, which is totally awesome to land and fly in completely new places that are so close to your home, because my father was spent a big part of his life in Cottage Grove, which is a town just right by here that I've never been to. And so I look down at the highway and I get on the proper side of the reservoir to land next to the highway. And what I do here is I'm kind of flying up onto the terrain so that I can try to avoid the valley wind for as long as I can, hoping that I can eke out a couple more K. And at the best possible scenario is that I would make it around this butte and I'd be able to soar down into the Willamette Valley proper. But alas, I run into some headwind. So I start just kind of pushing towards the mountain just so I can eke out the last couple of K, and then I turn around and I pick out a really nice landing zone. And as you can see, I pick out a big space that is over the water. The water's in front of it, and I can And with the water there, I can see the striations on the water, so I have a wind indicator almost perfectly. I also, as you can see the shape of the land, if I get blown down the lake, like if I land going backwards, I can actually kind of put it to the side of this sandbar that goes down the lake. So I set myself up with a contingency plan, and I also could see that there's a pullout on the highway right by here. So as you can see, I'm setting up my landing approach upwind, and I never go downwind of my landing because the wind is really strong and I never know when it's going to super gust. Because as I was coming in and getting lower, there was white caps on the water. The wind was very strong. And then as I got lower and lower, the wind kind of calmed down. So I spiraled down knowing that I was in a lull, and I land tiptoe perfectly. So good. I wasn't even packed up before Trevor and Ryan, who are my friends who picked me up from California on the longest flight in America last year. They picked me up, brought beer. I swam in the reservoir. We drove to Oak Ridge and had a Mexican dinner and drove home. Absolutely incredible flight. I don't know what else to tell you. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you loved it. Get stoked for paragliding. I'll also put together a little XCRacer2 first impressions video coming up soon. Thanks for watching. Subscribe. Send me a fucking chip. Toss a coin in my hat. Or if you want to learn how to communicate better and make your life better, check out my coaching page. Okay, the results that men have been having in the coaching realm have been fucking amazing. See you on the next episode. Oh, a good second flight. Woo! That's far. Woohoo! Ah. Oh, it's so hot here. Woo! Yeah, that was far. Woo!